an underwater lunar landscape. Here lives a wealth of rare sea creatures. Octopuses, sea cucumbers, greedy predators, crabs, shrimp, and fish. Walking fish. In the middle of the tropical belt lies Indonesia. The country stretches over a volcanic area of nearly 5,000 kilometers. Much of the archipelago is located within the Coral Triangle. The area is known as the Amazon jungle of the ocean. The island of Sulawesi is located in the center of the area, and special conditions have increased the species richness, especially in the Lembeh Strait. The narrow strait lies between the northeastern tip of Sulawesi and the small island of Lembeh, and its waters are incredibly rich in nutrients. Lembeh Strait is only a few square kilometers, but a wealth of rare species live closely together in an ecosystem that is unique. Above water, there is nothing particularly remarkable about Lembeh Strait. It's not a nature reserve. All along the strait are numerous dive resorts, where guides make a living by showing tourists the incredible animal life. Dive tourists are the local residents' main source of income. Enthusiasts from around the world come in a steady stream to dive and experience the many strange creatures firsthand. It is the only place in the world where one can find so many rare species in one place. It is not accidental that the Lembeh Strait is so full of life. It starts on dry land. All of Sulawesi has been shaped by volcanic activity. The tip of the northern peninsula is a more recent geological formation. It is much flatter here, and the many volcanoes in the area clearly stand out. Right at the end is Lembeh Strait. It's raining on the way up to the volcano Mount Tankoko. Moist air from the sea is driven up the sides of the volcano and cooled to form clouds and rain. The tropical rain pours down and carries with it grit and ash from the volcano. It makes the road to the summit somewhat more difficult. The many layers in the soil clearly show that through time, the area has been built up of many eruptions. At the top of the volcano, a fog lingers, but up here, the weather is also very changeable. Over the course of 5 minutes, the clouds disappear and reveal the crater. A small plume of smoke shows that the volcano is still active, even though the last eruption was in 1880. The fertile volcanic ash sustains agriculture on the volcano's slopes. The heavy rainfall is channeled into raging rivers, which carry large quantities of nutrients directly out into the Lembeh Strait. The nutrient-rich soil and rain also provides good growing conditions for the rainforest. Indonesia has a tremendous richness of species, not only in the sea, but also on land. In the volcanic area, national parks have been designated to protect the land animals that are endemic to the region. The black macaque monkey, for example. This species of macaque has developed in North Sulawesi, the only place in the world that they are found naturally. They can be recognized by the long tufts of hair on the top of their heads. They feed mainly on fruits and leaves, but also eat insects and small reptiles like lizards and frogs. But no snakes. An extremely venomous white-lipped palm viper. The branched stems of this strangler fig hides the world's only monkey which never eats plant food, Tarsius tarsia. The spectral tarsia is considered one of the world's smallest primates. It measures only about 12 centimeters and weighs no more than 120 grams. Its night vision is well developed, and at the sight of an insect, it proves itself very agile. It can leap more than 40 times its own body length. While the animals on land enjoy protection, Lembeh Strait is not protected. Only the dive guides have mutual agreements on how to preserve the animals in the strait. Their income depends on the presence of these animals. Many species, which are normally considered very rare, are surprisingly common here in the strait. Some of the most enigmatic and mysterious creatures live on the black volcanic gravel and the small coral oases that are scattered throughout the strait. Apart from the nutrients from land, the animals in the strait also prosper from what is called upwelling. The ocean outside the strait is more than 6 kilometers deep. The constant ocean current that flows through the strait brings nutrient-rich water up from the deep sea. Not only nutrients, but also plankton, eggs and larvae from the vast ocean drift with the currents into the strait, where they can find a sanctuary from the ocean predators. They are, however, not aware that their sanctuary is also home to some of the best adapted predators who are in constant competition for the limited space. It is the most remarkable ecosystem in the marine realm. This abundance of life has resulted in some remarkable and extreme adaptations that are necessary to survive and thrive here. The sandy gravel is more complex than one might think, with eyes that lurk everywhere. Imitating other organisms or objects on the sandy bottom is used as a way to trick and ambush prey, or as a defense mechanism. This dead leaf is actually a fish, a cockatoo wasp fish. It hides itself in plain sight by mimicking a dead leaf. It certainly fools the small crustaceans that unsuspectingly veer too close to its mouth. All the spines in its long dorsal fin are extremely toxic. People who keep them as aquarium fish must be very careful when handling them. When the ocean current picks up, the wasp fish can move to a new spot while staying in character as a dead leaf. It can be a bumpy ride though. Some animals simply choose to mimic the bottom. The wonderpus octopus is extremely good at it. They can change appearance in an instant. They have a two-sided strategy. When they are not mimicking the bottom to hide, their stripes imitate animals that ought to scare an attacker away, such as this sea snake. A pair of small dwarf cuttlefish are staying close together on a Halimeda algae. Could it be the prelude to mating? The current is so strong that their fins are working hard to keep them in position. They have taken on the color of the algae, but can change their coloration in an instant. They slip along with the flowing current. The diver discovers that they have settled on the tripod and are attempting to match its color. They move around on the equipment and demonstrate their amazing ability to adapt their camouflage. Here, the topmost cuttlefish has taken on the color of the sea floor along its back and the tripod color along its ventral side, but adjusted again after a slight move. The striped part of the lighting stand is also imitated by one of the cuttlefish. It also displays their hunting technique. When it sees something edible on the bottom, it shoots out what looks like one, but is in fact two slender tentacles. The suckers on the tip grabs even the tiniest prey and pulls it back into the cuttlefish's beak, where it will be paralyzed with poison. The diver removes the lighting stand. The cuttlefish are not used to this and become startled. One drifts over onto an old can. The other is so scared that it spurts ink while floating towards the can. That scares the first cuttlefish. The ink has a stringy consistency and almost looks like a creature as it floats away. Thus ended that romance. Plants are also imitated. The slightly clumsy Halimeda crab mimics algae perfectly. This red cotton ball is an orangutan crab that mimics the algae it moves around in. The red fur is not just algae it has gathered up, it is its own hair. The crocodile fish is an amazing sight. It blends well into the bottom and remains completely still, waiting for prey to swim past. Even the eyes are camouflaged with impressive eyelashes. The local residents around the strait sometimes catch crocodile fish to eat. It is not an endangered species. Others choose simply to hide and work together to stay safe. The goby and the shrimp, for example. Their cooperation is relatively simple, but surprisingly effective. The goby uses the shrimp's burrow as protection against predators. The shrimp uses the goby's watchful eyes. With its long antennae, it keeps constant contact with the goby's tail, while looking for food and maintaining the entrance to the burrow. It is a collaboration that is seen in many places. If the goby senses danger, it bolts down into the burrow, along with the shrimp. Some have a shell to hide in. Sea snails. The Vomer conch does not glide forward like terrestrial snails. It lurches forward with its large muscular foot. Its mouth is a trunk. It is what you might call a normal sea snail. Sea snails in the tropics are normally called conches. The spider conch lives on fine red algae. It has a very decorative shell and a good trick up its sleeve when it feels threatened. Its stalked eyes peep out from under the shell to see if it's safe to turn around again. Even when conches are dead, their shells can still offer protection. This shell has a new inhabitant. Hermit crabs simply do not have a shell of their own to protect their soft abdomen. They use conch or snail shells to protect themselves. But when they grow, they must find a roomier fortress. In the Lembeh Strait, the supply of available shells is limited, so all means are used. Even to try to pull another hermit crab out of its shell. Now you can see the crab's soft abdomen. While the victor inspects its new shell, the evicted crab counterattacks. It has nothing to lose. Finally, the squatter withdraws. The new shell is perhaps not worth the trouble. The original owner hurries into its reconquered shell, safe again. The plaice-like angler flatfish is camouflaged on the bottom, so it can better surprise its prey. But if it spots a box crab, it will follow it along. Over time, the fish have learned that there will always be some leftovers when the box crab eats. It's a very sloppy feeder. The fish may as well follow closely and have dinner served. There is a tasty morsel. Or maybe not. The box crab digs itself into the seabed, perhaps to escape its pursuer. The sandy bottom with volcanic ash provides a good hiding place for many species. A Napoleon snake eel appears. It is normally not active by day, but something must have disturbed it. When the photographer catches up with it, it is already burrowing into the sand again. As a snake eel, it can use its hardened, pointed tail to dig in, backwards. One must be careful not to burrow near a related enemy. Two sharp-snout snake eels have come too close to each other to be good neighbors. The little hummingbird bobtail squid stays buried in the ash bottom during the day. It delicately uses a couple of its arms to completely cover itself. Not everything that looks like a plant is in fact a plant. This strange fish always swims with its head down. It is related to seahorses, and almost looks like a seahorse that has been straightened out. The ornate ghost pipefish hides well next to the plant. One of the most incredible adaptations is found in sea fans. Right in the middle of the picture, a pygmy seahorse is hiding in plain sight. Its skin is the same color as the sea fan's branches, while the buds on the seahorse's body mimic the fan's polyps. The seahorse will stay on the same sea fan for its whole life, and there's good reason to blend in with the surroundings. The predators near the sea fan are also well camouflaged. They mimic seaweed or algae-covered coral rubble and strike without warning. The coconut octopus has earned its name because it uses coconut shells to hide in. And it never forgets to bring its shells when it runs away. Other octopuses, such as the reef octopus, hide in cavities within the reef itself. Like most octopuses, it can also change its color to blend in with the surroundings, but makes itself very visible when it wants to scare away the photographer. The fierce competition for food means that some creatures use alternative ways to move around. Many of the fish in the strait stick close to the bottom. But the oriental flying gurnard can also walk along the bottom, to such a degree that the pectoral fins have evolved into a sort of fingers on which it walks. And it's not the only fish that has developed that approach. The devil scorpion fish can actually swim, but seems to prefer not to. Then rather speed walk. The long spines on its back are there to deter enemies. Individuals of this species display varying amounts of camouflage. Already from the juvenile stage, they are able to catch prey as fast as an adult. If they feel threatened, they will also burrow into the sediment. Leaving only an eye above the sand. The enigmatic flamboyant cuttlefish does not swim at all, but crawls around on the bottom with two tentacles raised high. The rolling color changes along its body tell all predators that it is poisonous to eat. And it doesn't have a larval stage. When the eggs hatch, the newborn cuttlefish look completely like an adult and act like one too. When it lands on the bottom, it immediately sticks up two tentacles and begins to search for food. This octopus uses color and surprise when it feels threatened. It is a blue-ringed octopus, and the blue markings are a dire warning to stay well clear of its bite. A single bite contains enough venom to kill 10 to 20 adult humans. It's a warning that all creatures in the strait understand, so the octopus can swim about freely and does not need to hide. The long-arm octopus has developed a peculiar gait. It keeps all 8 arms on the sea floor, all the time. Here at night, where some divers have left eggshells, one can see how small it actually is. It can also burrow into the bottom. Lizardfish are also a walking fish. It looks harmless when it is sparrow hopping about, but up close to this couple they show their true face. Endless numbers of razor-sharp teeth. Some species even have teeth on their tongues. Others move extremely slowly. Sea cucumbers. They play a central role in marine ecosystems. They are the earthworms of the sea floor. Here on the coral, one can see what looks like feet, but are actually its mouthparts. They are tentacles that lift sand, gravel and ash up into its mouth. Inside the sea cucumber, all the organic material is stripped off, and the clean sediment exits the other end of the animal. They move slowly but relentlessly and can cover large areas every day. In this way, they help ensure that dead organic matter does not pile up on the sea floor. And they come in all sizes. Here, lots of small Lambert's worm sea cucumbers are closely packed on the coral. The large sea cucumbers are considered a delicacy in Asia, and due to overfishing, they are now an endangered species. Humans are not the only creatures exploiting the sea cucumbers, however, such as the emperor shrimp. The sea cucumber gains no benefit from its presence. The shrimp simply hitchhikes and rides with its head downward. That way it can collect dead organic material from the seabed as the sea cucumber moves along. This sea cucumber lives buried in the sediment. Only its spectacular tentacles poke up. They capture plankton, and when full, it is pulled down to its mouth, where smaller tentacles help. Sea cucumbers belong to the phylum of echinoderms, which contains species with very different looks, such as the crinoid feather star, which looks like a walking plant. There is a large variation within the echinoderms, also seen within the various classes. Sea urchins. And starfish. At night, some of the most fearsome predators are on the loose. the moray eel searches the bottom for prey. The stargazer looks menacing. Its eyes and mouth are on top of its head. It buries itself in the porous sediment and leaves only the eyes and jaws free. And then it just waits. Mercilessly. The most ferocious creature in the Lembeh Strait is a segmented worm. A strange apparition with fearsome, powerful jaws. Colloquially known as the bobbit worm. It has no eyes, but it uses its sensitive nervous system to detect movement. It may need a few attempts to pull the prey into its burrow, but it never lets go. On the other hand, it would help to have eyes. Sometimes the prey is lucky, or just too fast. The night doesn't only hold terror. These small blue squid generate their own light. They use the light to communicate with each other and to attract prey. Some fish fluoresce when subjected to ultraviolet light. Some corals light up blue. A slightly dull sea anemone suddenly lights up in beautiful fireworks as it gorges itself on plankton. Razorfish stick together in tight schools for protection. When the school stops, they all face downwards to catch prey. They feed on microscopic planktonic crustaceans that flow through the strait. Another school of fish looks almost like an advancing army. Young striped eel catfish hold together in large schools. One shouldn't get too close, as they have poisonous spines in their fins. They suck up the sediment and eject the sand grains through their gill slits. Sea anemones almost look like plants when they sway in the current, and they can be very beautiful. But they are predatory animals. They attract their prey with colors and paralyze them with a sting from the nynocytes on their many tentacles. Fish that are immune to the sea anemone's sting use them to hide in. Here, the well-known clownfish. It has a cousin, the saddleback clownfish. It is also immune to the anemone's sting and pays for the hospitality. The fish's feces provide nutrients for the anemone, and they also keep the anemone's enemies at bay. The clownfishes remain with the same anemone and do not form pairs. As they grow up, they are all males, but the dominant male, which is the largest, becomes a female. So there's only ever one female in the same group. Here she is laying her eggs slightly away from the anemone, while the largest male, the only breeding male, helps to care for and fertilize the eggs. Other animals also live on the anemone. Crabs. This porcelain crab snatches food from the sea floor, whenever it can reach. It never leaves the protection of the tentacles. Transparent shrimp. They only venture a short distance away from their anemone home. They must, however, beware of the clownfish. Here in the Strait live a lot of intricate nudibranchs. They are snails without a shell. On their backs, they carry colourful gills. The strong colours tell predators that the nudibranchs are toxic. Two snails are busy courting. One suitor is lavishing on the affection while its white penis is emerging. However, they both have a penis, as they are hermaphrodites, like all apistobranch snails. Some of them only look poisonous, but are in fact not. One of the most highly adapted animals in the animal kingdom lives among the coral rubble on the bottom of the Lembeh Strait. It is the mantis shrimp. This one is in the process of building its den. Mantis shrimp can produce a deep rumbling sound with their bodies. The purpose of this humming is not yet known. They're renowned for their impressive hunting techniques and their advanced eyes. In itself, each eye has perfect depth perception, and the eyes have up to 16 different types of light receptors, over 5 times more than humans. Mantis shrimp can see in many spectra, including ultraviolet and polarized light. Their hunting techniques are also exceptional. Generally, mantis shrimp hunt as either smashers or slashers. This slasher species of mantis shrimp catches the fish with spined limbs that resemble those of the praying mantis. But this species is a shrimp that eats shellfish. It has a pair of clubs that it can smash with, hard. The clubs deliver the fastest punch in the animal kingdom. If one is a crab, resting in front of a mantis shrimp's lair is not a wise decision. After a few blows, the crab's hard shell is smashed open. The crab doesn't stand a chance. The ribbon eel normally lives in a hole on the coral reef. It's not often that one sees them swimming around freely. This female is out looking for a new place to live. She disappears completely into her new den. The male looks different. They are blue and yellow. Ribbon eels hunt by sneaking up on their prey. The fish do not look startled. Dinner is served. Ribbon eels can also change their sex during their lives. They start out as males, and if they live long enough and are dominant enough, they change color and become females. Some creatures disguise themselves as a totally different species of animal. This one looks just like a sea sponge, but it is in fact one of the most voracious predators, the frogfish. There are many species of frogfish, but they always try to look like a sponge or algae. This frogfish doesn't look like it's very well camouflaged, but it is illuminated by the photographer's lamp. Normally, the seawater filters out the red colors from the sunlight, so everything looks more blue on the seabed. If we remove the red in the picture, the frogfish is perfectly camouflaged. Frogfish are a type of monkfish related to the angler and are usually very rare, but not so in the Lembeh Strait. It is one of the sea creatures that are high on the dive tourists' must-see list. It is a predator fish that does not swim, but walks instead. The front fins almost look like hands. Its gait is somewhat lumbering and not very fast. And it just has to put up with the strong ocean currents. It cannot really swim, but it can get about more quickly by pumping water out of the gill openings behind the pectoral fins, a kind of jet engine. Although frogfish were discovered in the 1600s, we don't know very much about them. They do, however, all have a sort of fishing rod. What looks like bait sits at the tip of the rod. If the bait is bitten off, the frogfish can regrow it. Individual species of frogfish can vary considerably in their appearance, so it is by looking at the appearance of the bait and the fishing rod that one can distinguish between the different species of frogfish. The hairy frogfish looks surprisingly different when it's young, all black and hairless. But the bait is similar to that of the adults. The frogfish can extend its mouth up to 12 times its normal size. And even though frogfish are generally quite lethargic, they can snatch prey out of the water in just 6 milliseconds. When it opens its enormous jaws so quickly, a vacuum is created that simply sucks the prey into its mouth. The prey has no chance. What a glutton! At one end of the Lembeh Strait lies the port city of Bitung. Tuna fishing is very important for the city. The Lembeh Strait itself has long since been fished empty of big fish such as tuna, and industrial tuna fishery now takes place on the high seas. Dive tourists and local residents have a big impact on the environment of the strait. That Lembeh Strait is not a protected area has left obvious marks on the sea floor. All kinds of human debris are found lying everywhere. But the marine animals know how to exploit them to their advantage. Car tires that many of the animals can hide in. A sea anemone becomes a kind of hubcap. Blennies normally live in coral and sunken wood. But this blenny uses a discarded bottle instead. The thick glass provides effective protection to its eggs on the inside wall of the bottle. It is the male that guards the eggs. He keeps them clean and uses his tail to circulate oxygen-rich water over them. All kinds of containers are popular. A coconut octopus is using a broken bottle to protect itself. The fact that the big fish are no longer common in the Strait means that big fin reef squid now often lay their eggs on mooring lines. They attach them one at a time in large bunches on the line. A small frogfish has found shelter among the seaweeds on the mooring line. Among frogfish, it is one of the best swimmers. It uses the jet engine, beats its tail, and extends its pectoral fins as wings. It is trying to reach sargassum seaweed, which floats in mats on the surface. There's not much about, so the young sargassum frogfish has found a drifting plastic bag instead. But obviously the color's all wrong. Many ghost nets on the seabed testify to the extensive fishing that still occurs in the Strait. This small frogfish seems to find itself well at home here and will eventually take on the color of the net. In Bitung, there's also a small fish market where locals bring their catch. In the market, a small type of fish is also traded. They are sold for use as bait in the industrial tuna fishery. The small fish are abundant in the Lembeh Strait and also caught here, but the fish requires a special fishing technique. Even at night, the Strait is not a quiet place. The lights on the boats attract the fish. The boat is moved slowly towards the shore and the fish follow. A large net is dragged around the fish shoal. The net is slowly dragged tighter. Besides rubbish, the rarer species are also sorted out. Species that may fetch rather high prices as aquarium fish. Indonesia is the country in the world that sells by far the most coral fish. The trade in these exotic fish has already had an effect on the fauna in the Lembeh Strait. The sea anemones have new inhabitants. The Banggai cardinal fish is a popular aquarium fish because of its dazzling beauty. It was put out in the Strait in the year 2000 and has since increased in numbers, so much so that it now threatens the animals that already live here. Even though it is now abundant in the Lembeh Strait, so many of these fish are caught and resold from Indonesia and the Philippines that the species may be extinct in the wild in 10 years' time. Those who make money capturing and selling them may also become aware that there are many other rare and interesting aquarium creatures that one can easily capture in the Lembeh Strait. This species of frogfish can already be bought online, and they are easy to get hold of. North of Lembeh, the Indonesian government has designated a marine protected area for coral fish, but it does not include the Lembeh Strait, even though this is a unique volcanic ecosystem that does not exist anywhere else. One must strongly hope that this area, with its collection of some of the world's most fascinating creatures, will also become protected, so we can continue to be surprised and delighted in life's manifold creations, their amazing behavior, their shapes and colors.